Richard had 3 months to live and $50 million with no one to inherit it. Then he saw 5 homeless girls sharing a single sandwich in an alley, caring for each other like family. Everyone laughed when he decided to adopt them. They stopped laughing when they saw the results. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. Richard Blackwell sat in the sterile white office, staring at the X-rays that showed the cancer spreading through his lungs like dark clouds. Dr. Martinez's words echoed in his mind, 3 months, maybe 4 if you're lucky. At 62, Richard had built a business empire worth $50 million. He owned hotels, restaurants, and real estate across 3 states. But he had no family, no children, no one to inherit his fortune or remember his name when he was gone. What about treatment? Richard asked, though he already knew the answer. We can try chemotherapy, but at this stage it would only buy you a few weeks of suffering, Dr. Martinez said gently. I'm sorry, Richard. The best thing you can do is get your affairs in order and spend time with loved ones. Loved ones? Richard almost laughed at the irony. He had spent his entire life building wealth and had forgotten to build relationships. His ex-wife had left him years ago, taking half his money but leaving behind only bitter memories. They had no children together. His parents were dead and he had no siblings. Richard walked out of the hospital into the busy downtown streets, feeling more alone than ever. The city bustled around him, thousands of people living their lives, while he faced the reality that his life was almost over. As he walked aimlessly, trying to process his diagnosis, Richard found himself in the poorest part of the city. The streets were dirty, filled with homeless people and abandoned buildings. He had driven through this area many times in his luxury car but had never stopped to really look. That's when he saw them. 5 young girls, ranging in age from about 6 to 14, huddled together in an alley behind a closed restaurant. They were dirty, thin, and wearing clothes that looked like they hadn't been washed in weeks. The oldest girl, a teenager with fierce eyes, was dividing a single sandwich among the 5 of them. Maya, you eat this piece, the teenager said to a girl who couldn't have been more than 8. You're growing. What about you, Sophia? Asked another girl, maybe 10 years old. I'm not hungry, Sophia lied, though Richard could see her hands shaking from hunger. Richard watched from a distance as the girls shared their meager meal. Despite their desperate situation, they cared for each other like a family. The youngest, who looked about 6, coughed violently, and immediately the others surrounded her with concern. Isabel needs medicine, said a girl with braided hair who appeared to be around 12. I know, Carmen, Sophia replied, her voice heavy with worry. But we don't have money for a doctor. Richard felt something stir in his chest that he hadn't felt in years. Compassion. These children were fighting for survival every day, yet they looked out for each other with more love than he had experienced in his entire privileged life. He approached them slowly, not wanting to frighten them. Excuse me, he said gently. Sophia immediately stepped in front of the younger girls, protective and wary. We're not bothering anyone. We'll move if you want. No, you don't need to move, Richard said. I was wondering if you girls are hungry. There's a restaurant around the corner. We don't have money, Sophia said proudly, lifting her chin. I'm buying, Richard replied. My name is Richard. What are yours? The girls exchanged glances. Finally, Sophia spoke. I'm Sophia. This is Carmen, Maya, Isabel, and Anna. She pointed to each girl in turn. Over dinner at a nearby diner, Richard learned their stories. Sophia was 14 and had been on the streets for 2 years after aging out of an overcrowded foster home. Carmen, 12, had run away from an abusive foster family. Maya, 8, had been abandoned by her drug-addicted mother. Isabel, 6, had been found by Sophia living alone in a condemned building after her grandmother died. Anna, 10, had been living on the streets since she was 7. We take care of each other, Sophia explained fiercely. We're a family. Richard was amazed by their resilience, their loyalty to each other, and their determination to survive. These girls had nothing, yet they had everything that mattered: love, loyalty, and hope. Where do you sleep? Richard asked. Different places, Carmen said. Sometimes shelters, but they're usually full. Sometimes under bridges or in abandoned buildings. What about school? Can't go to school without an address, Sophia said bitterly. The system doesn't want kids like us. That night, Richard couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the 5 girls, probably cold and hungry somewhere on the streets. He thought about his empty mansion with 8 bedrooms, his bank accounts full of money he would never spend, and his life that would end without leaving any meaningful impact on the world. The next morning, Richard called his lawyer, Jonathan Hayes. I want to adopt 5 children, Richard announced. There was silence on the other end of the line. Richard, are you feeling all right? You've never mentioned wanting children before. I'm dying, Jonathan. I have 3 months to live. Another pause. I'm so sorry. But Richard, adoption takes time. Background checks, home studies, court proceedings. It could take a year or more. Then we'll find another way, Richard said firmly. I want to help these girls and I want to do it legally. Jonathan sighed. Tell me about these children. Richard explained about Sophia, Carmen, Maya, Isabel, and Anna. As he spoke, he could hear Jonathan typing on his computer. Richard, these girls are probably wards of the state. Even if you could expedite the adoption process, which is nearly impossible, why would you want to take on such a massive responsibility when you're terminally ill? Because they need someone and I need them, Richard said. I've spent my whole life accumulating wealth, but I've never done anything that mattered. This matters. What happens to them when you die in 3 months? Jonathan asked bluntly. Richard had thought about this. I'll leave everything to them. They'll be set for life. Richard, you're talking about giving $50 million to children who have been living on the streets. The courts, the media, everyone will think you've lost your mind. Maybe I have, Richard said. But for the first time in my life, I'm thinking clearly. Against his better judgment, Jonathan agreed to help. He contacted social services and discovered that the girls were indeed in the system, though they had been classified as runaways. Getting custody would require proving Richard could provide a stable home environment and that his intentions were genuine. The bureaucratic process was nightmare. Social workers questioned Richard's motives, suggesting he was either mentally unstable or had inappropriate intentions toward the children. The media got hold of the story and painted him as an eccentric millionaire with questionable judgment. Dying Millionaire's Desperate Adoption Scheme, read one headline. Is this rich man trying to buy children? Asked another. Richard's business associates thought he had lost his mind. His lawyer received dozens of calls from people questioning Richard's mental state. Some even suggested he was being scammed by street children looking for a payday. But Richard didn't care about the criticism. He visited the girls regularly, bringing them food, clothes, and medical care. He rented them a small apartment temporarily while the legal process moved forward, and hired a tutor to help them catch up on their education. The girls were initially suspicious of Richard's motives. They had learned not to trust adults who made big promises. Why are you helping us? Sophia asked one day. What do you want from us? Richard considered how to answer. He hadn't told them about his diagnosis. I want to be part of a family, he said simply. I want to matter to someone. You matter to us, little Isabel said, climbing onto his lap. You saved us. Over the weeks, Richard watched the girls blossom with proper food, shelter, and care. Carmen turned out to be brilliant at mathematics. Maya was an artist who drew beautiful pictures of their new life together. Isabel's cough disappeared with proper medical treatment. Anna discovered she loved to read and devoured every book Richard brought her. And Sophia, the fierce protector, slowly began to trust that this new life was real. I never thought adults could be kind without wanting something back, she confided to Richard one evening. Some adults are kind because it's the right thing to do, Richard replied. And sometimes helping others helps us too. The legal battle continued for 2 months. Social workers conducted extensive interviews and background checks. Psychologists evaluated Richard's mental state. Child advocates questioned whether a dying man should be allowed to adopt 5 children. Finally, the day came for the final court hearing. Richard sat in the courtroom with Jonathan, facing a judge who would decide the fate of 5 little girls. Mr. Blackwell, Judge Patricia Hernandez said, I've reviewed your case extensively. Your financial resources are certainly adequate to provide for these children. Your background check shows no criminal history. The psychological evaluation indicates you are of sound mind. Richard held his breath. However, the judge continued, I have serious concerns about your motivations and the long-term welfare of these children. You are a terminally ill man with no experience raising children, seeking to adopt 5 traumatized girls from difficult backgrounds. Can you explain to this court why you believe this is in their best interest? Richard stood up slowly. Your Honor, 3 months ago I was diagnosed with terminal lung cancer. I have perhaps a month left to live. Gasps echoed through the courtroom. I have spent my entire life building wealth but never building relationships. I have no family, no children, no legacy except money. When I met Sophia, Carmen, Maya, Isabel, and Anna, I saw 5 incredible young women who had nothing except each other, yet they shared everything they had. Richard's voice grew stronger. These girls taught me what family really means. They showed me that love isn't about what you can get but what you can give. I want to adopt them not because I need children but because they need a father. I want to give them my name, my resources, and most importantly, my love. And when you die, the judge asked. They will inherit everything I own, Richard said. But more importantly, they will inherit the knowledge that they are worthy of love, that they belong somewhere, that they matter. The judge was quiet for a long moment. Mr. Blackwell, this court has received dozens of letters opposing this adoption. Business associates, social workers, and members of the public have all questioned your judgment. Richard's heart sank. However, Judge Hernandez continued, we have also received letters from the children themselves, from their tutors, their doctors, and their temporary caregivers. Every single person who has observed you with these children has testified to the genuine love and care you provide. The judge looked directly at Richard. Sophia has written to this court asking that I not separate her family again. Carmen has submitted math homework showing she has advanced 2 grade levels in just 2 months under your care. Maya has drawn pictures of a family that includes you. Isabel and Anna have both shown remarkable improvement in their physical and emotional health. Richard felt tears building in his eyes. Most importantly, the judge said, I have interviewed each of these children extensively. They love you, Mr. Blackwell. And it is clear that you love them. While this is an unusual situation, the welfare of the children is my primary concern. I am granting this adoption. The courtroom erupted. Some people cheered, others shook their heads in disapproval. But Richard only had eyes for his 5 daughters, who ran to him with tears of joy streaming down their faces. We're really your daughters now? Isabel asked, hugging him tight. You were always my daughters, Richard replied. Now it's just official. The media frenzy that followed was intense. Richard was criticized for his reckless decision and praised for his incredible generosity. But he ignored it all. He had more important things to focus on. Richard used his remaining weeks to create the most comprehensive trust fund and inheritance plan possible. He worked with the best lawyers to ensure his daughters would be protected and provided for long after he was gone. He arranged for them to attend the best schools, to have access to college funds, and to inherit his businesses when they came of age. But more importantly, he spent every possible moment being their father. He taught Sophia about business and leadership, recognizing her natural ability to protect and guide others. He encouraged Carmen's love of mathematics and enrolled her in advanced classes. He bought Maya an easel and art supplies, watching her create beautiful paintings of their family. He read bedtime stories to Isabel every night, marveling at her bright imagination. He took Anna to the library regularly, feeding her hunger for knowledge. Daddy, Anna said one evening, they had started calling him Daddy within days of the adoption, are you really going to die? Richard had been dreading this conversation, but he knew it was necessary. Yes, sweetheart. I'm very sick and the doctors can't make me better. But we just became a family, Maya said, tears in her eyes. We will always be a family, Richard assured them. Death can't change that. And I've made sure you'll all be taken care of. We don't care about the money, Sophia said fiercely. We care about you. I know, Richard said, pulling all 5 girls close. And I care about you too. More than anything in the world. In his final weeks, Richard experienced more joy and love than he had in his entire previous life. He attended Carmen's math competition, where she won first place. He displayed Maya's artwork throughout the house. He played tea party with Isabel and Anna. He taught Sophia how to manage money and make investments. When the pain became too much and Richard had to be hospitalized, the girls visited him every day. They brought him drawings, told him about school, and held his hands while he slept. I'm not afraid anymore, Richard told them during one of his last conversations. I used to be afraid of dying alone, forgotten. But now I know I'll live on in all of you. We'll never forget you, Daddy, Sophia promised, tears streaming down her face. We'll make you proud, Carmen added. We'll be a family forever, Maya whispered. Richard Blackwell died on a Tuesday morning in March, surrounded by his 5 daughters. His last words were, I love you all. The funeral was attended by hundreds of people. Business associates who had criticized Richard's decision now spoke of his courage and compassion. The judge who had approved the adoption delivered a eulogy about the power of love to transform lives. But the most powerful moment came when Sophia stood up to speak. 3 months ago, people laughed at my daddy for adopting 5 girls from the streets, she said, her voice clear and strong. They said he was crazy, that he was wasting his money, that he didn't know what he was doing. She looked out at the packed church. They were wrong. My daddy knew exactly what he was doing. He was building a family. He was creating a legacy. He was proving that love is the only thing that really matters. Sophia's voice grew stronger. People thought he was rescuing us, but we rescued him too. He gave us a home, but we gave him a purpose. He gave us his money, but we gave him our hearts. She wiped tears from her eyes. Daddy always said that family isn't about blood or DNA. Family is about choosing to love someone and never giving up on them. We chose each other, and we're going to honor that choice for the rest of our lives. 10 years later, the Blackwell sisters had become a force to be reckoned with. Sophia had graduated from Harvard Business School and was running Richard's companies, expanding them into a philanthropic empire that helped homeless children worldwide. Carmen had become a mathematician and was working on her PhD at MIT. Maya was a famous artist whose paintings sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Isabel was studying medicine, determined to help sick children. Anna had become a best-selling author, writing stories about hope and family. They had kept Richard's mansion as their family home, gathering there for holidays and important occasions. In the front hall hung a portrait of Richard surrounded by his 5 daughters, painted by Maya. Below the portrait was a plaque that read, "Richard Blackwell, beloved father, visionary businessman, proof that love multiplies when you give it away." The Blackwell Foundation, established with Richard's fortune and managed by his daughters, had helped thousands of homeless children find families and futures. They had built schools, funded scholarships, and created programs that gave hope to kids who had been forgotten by society. "Daddy would be so proud," Isabel said during their annual family dinner on the anniversary of Richard's death. "He is proud," Sophia replied. "He's watching us, and he knows that his 3 months with us changed the world." And it was true. Richard Blackwell's decision to adopt 5 street girls in his final months had created a ripple effect of love and generosity that touched countless lives. People who had initially laughed at the crazy millionaire now spoke of him as a visionary who understood what truly mattered. The girls he had rescued had grown into women who rescued others. The love he had given had multiplied beyond anything he could have imagined. The family he had created in his dying days had become his greatest achievement and his most lasting legacy. Sometimes the most important thing you can do with your life happens in the time you have left. Sometimes building a family takes only a few months. Sometimes being remembered forever requires only choosing to love. Richard Blackwell had learned that lesson in his final chapter, and his 5 daughters spent their lives teaching it to others.